My name is Krishna Jakka. I am a senior solutions architect at 6 months, but I have been on AWS, working on AWS Cloud for the past close to 10 years. I would say it's around 2013 is when I just started. When I used AWS for the first time, when I worked for a startup in United States. My experience has been primarily on banking domain, and most of my work experience is in US. So I moved back to India for family reasons, and then started working for AWS. So as part of this session, we're going to briefly touch upon what is AWS Cloud, and we're going to touch upon what is the global infrastructure that AWS has, what it takes for an application to be cloud native, and we also look at some of the breadth and depth of services that AWS has to offer in a few specific areas: compute, storage, databases, AML, mobile, and data analytics. These may not be all of interest to you, so we'll see how much we can cover in this 1 hour that we have. And what I know that you guys you may be just getting started, or you have a very basic knowledge of AWS, but at the same time, I'll try to be as much not so technical as possible, so that you'll get a sense of how you can leverage AWS in your workloads, right? So feel free to stop me anytime if you believe that I'm going too fast. So then stop me, ask me questions. Let's make it very interactive, or even if you want to just leave a question to me in the chat, please do so, and I will address it at the end of the presentation, or while the speakers are speaking, right? So first of all, we'll start with what is cloud, right? So you might have heard a lot of things on cloud, and possibly maybe you just you already started using cloud, but for old timers like us who is in the industry for a long time, all they know is servers on premises, right? Meaning like as an enterprise, if you provision a server in your data center, and then you start building your applications in your data center on-prem, right? But when it comes to cloud, there's a fundamental mind shift, right? So basically, it is on-demand provisioning of your resources. The resources could be compute, storage, databases, whatever, right? It's any IT resources you want to provision on demand, and you with a pay-as-you-go pricing model. When I say pay-as-you-go pricing model, it's just like your home electricity bill, right? So where you are billed based on your usage. You turn on and turn off your lights depending on what your usage pattern is. And let's say you're going out of your room, you just turn it off. So it's a similar pattern, right? Here, all these IT resources, you just provision based on your need, and use it for the time that you want, and just you switch it off, right? So that's what the pay-as-you-go pricing model mean. So what it means, like it is obviously a low cost, because you don't have to buy a server. And by the way, servers are extremely costly, right? So the way you maintain, you'd have to pay a lot for maintenance, patching, all the stuff. So even there for cooling, even for cooling your servers, it takes a lot of effort and people. So you are upfront avoiding your capex, but rather you are replacing it with a low cost variable expense, right? So that way you are increasing your agility, right? You have a choice of services that you want to pick from, and you have an option to do experimentation. So that is what we mean by agility. One of the key feature of using cloud is elasticity, right? So especially as a startup, you don't have to make guesses about what your usage pattern is going to be, right? So you want to increase your computing power based on the usage. You don't want to make any guesses about whether my product is going to be a success first day or 3 months down the line, right? So you start small and you expand on it, right? That's what elasticity means. Is there any question? I heard something. All right. So this agility, the agility that we just spoke about, where we have a choice of services to pick from, which we'll briefly see shortly, brings to the table faster innovation. And with a cloud provider like AWS, you'll have the global reach, as you will just see, right? So what do customers demand from us? They want to get to market faster, right? So and at a lower cost of ownership. They don't want to pay too much for things that they want to use on the cloud. Obviously, they want high performance and scalability. That's a huge differentiator for your applications in the market today, right? And the last one is a security and isolation by design, right? So this is especially important when you are using cloud, because it is shared set of resources. And you might have seen, if you followed news of late, especially in India, there has been some breaches in some of the very important customers of ours, right? So it's not because of the AWS infrastructure, but if you tend to follow bad security practices, it is a big impact for your business. So security and isolation by design is very important, especially when you're scaling your business. So to summarize, you want the most functionality. You want to pick a cloud provider that has the most functionality. As you will see shortly, AWS has the breadth and depth of services in pretty much every area you can think of, right? When it comes to your software development, and you have a large support of a large community of customers and partners. It's proven to be one of the most secure platform. In fact, there are customers who say that they would not have realized the same amount of security posture if they have to build the security practices themselves. So with all the experience that AWS has, the security model on AWS has been pretty robust, and that brings and also the experience that we gained out of working with tens and thousands of customers worldwide brings us operational expertise, and we precisely implement all the best practices. We think from the customer standpoint, and we implement that so that it is very beneficial to the customers. And at the fastest pace of innovation, that AWS keeps on adding more to its services. As we speak, we have about 190 plus services on our AWS platform, and all these services that we offer, whether it is managed services or self-managed services, brings you a more secured and frugal platform for building your applications. We'll just look at one of the use case, right? There are many customers who build their applications and entire stack natively on AWS. For example, Netflix, for example. Netflix is the most popular video service. It is completely natively built on AWS, meaning that they don't have any data center, or they have everything on the cloud and on AWS. So similarly, Coca-Cola, right? So I want to bring this use case to you guys, which is more relevant in our times. As you might have seen all of these vending machines wherever you go to a shopping mall or a movie theater in US especially. So I'm sure it will be the same case when it comes to Europe and other places. These vending machines have one fundamental problem, especially during the time of pandemic, right? So the basic problem is that we have to touch these machines in order to vend your drink. So there is this fundamental problem that Coca-Cola is trying to solve. And what they did is they created a mobile application so that they can vend the drinks to the customers with touchless option, right? And it is an immediate problem for them to solve. It's it cannot be like it will take 2 years to roll out this deployment worldwide, right? So they adapted to a serverless platform, which we'll see a little later in this presentation, and they were able to deploy that in days rather than months and years. So that is the kind of agility that AWS services brings you to the table. Similarly, we have Airbnb completely completely built on AWS. So those are what we call as cloud native, right? So what is this differentiating thing that that AWS brings onto the table? One important thing is the AWS global infrastructure. If you look at AWS infrastructure, we have what we call regions. A region is nothing but a geographically separated area, like we have regions distributed across the globe. So within that each region, we have a cluster of data centers called availability zones, which are physically each availability zone will have one or more data centers, and there will be a distance of at least 1 kilometer between each of these data centers, right? So having this setup, we can easily build fault tolerant systems. Should there be a failure in one region and one availability zone, you can easily switch back to the resources that are available on other availability zones. This brings you high fault tolerance, as well as these are especially important if you're thinking about, let's say there is an earthquake in one of the region. So how will your application be completely down? No, because depending upon how you design your application, if you make it as a multi AZ, availability zone is shortcut for AZ is shortcut for availability zone. If you design your applications on a multi availability zone model, then obviously you will not have failures in your things. You just switch over to the next, the available, the active availability zone. Along with the regions and availability zones, we have something called CloudFront. So a CloudFront is the distribution centers across the globe where you put your data and applications to a closest CloudFront store, closest CloudFront location, and the users in that particular location are being served from that CloudFront point, right? So let's say, for example, Netflix, right? So imagine the latency if everything has to be streamed from one central location in US, right? So instead, what they do is they cache their content across all these CloudFront points, and if you're accessing from India, for example, the content is solved from the nearest CloudFront location, right? So how they are, we'll also have to talk about the Amazon Global Backbone Network. A global backbone network is a network that connects all these data centers, regions, availability zones, and CloudFront locations by a redundant at least 100 GB of network that circles around the globe. By redundant, what we mean is, even if there is a impact on one line, there will be a redundant line which will restore the connectivity. We talked about the breadth and depth of services that AWS has to offer. At the core, we have the basic services, the core services, which is your compute, storage, networking, CDN, and we have a set of management tools. For example, your monitoring frameworks and other stuff, right? So you have many sets of services that are by use case, right? For example, if you are to build a mobile service, you have something called Amplify. If you want to build analytical solutions, you could use either Redshift or things like that. There are similarly, if you want to think about the database options, AWS has about 15 types of databases at your disposal, depending upon your use case, right? Similarly, we have services for IoT, machine learning, as we'll briefly touch upon, right? So I want to just while we talk about all the services and other stuff, but I want to show some basic use case. How do we build a static website on AWS, right? So I'll just take a pause. I want to see if anyone has any questions. So if you just want to use AWS, for example, to host a static website, all you need to do is to use a service called S3, right? So if you go to S3, create a bucket.
Hey Krishna,
I hope you guys can see my screen.
I think this your presentation is not moving.
Oh.
Yeah.
But can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen, but it's stuck at move from ideas to implementation slide.
Maybe you can stop sharing, Krishna, and then again start sharing.
Okay, 1 second.
Cool. So till Krishna does
that. Yeah,
this
always.
Yeah, Murphy's law always works with all of us. Till Krishna does that, for the teams who are here, I'm just putting in the links of 2 Google Forms. Those are details of your team for the competition. One of the form has sheet has.
Okay.
You ready, Krishna? One of the sheets has 3 tabs. They have details about your team, and one of the ones is about the boot camp.
Yeah, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see Sri, a cool dude.
No. Can you see my console now?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I just Sri, the cool dude, is my son's static website, so which he hosted on AWS. So all he did was to create a bucket. This is the AWS console for those of you who don't know, right? So if you click on the services, you will see the list of services that AWS has to offer, and this is by use case, right? So I hope you are able to see my what all the things I'm doing right now. Setu?
Yes.
Can you see my console? Okay.
Yes,
so
please.
One of the service is S3, which is nothing but an object store, right? So in S3 you have the provision to create buckets, and within the buckets you can host your objects. So what we did here is we created a bucket called www.sri.net, and we kept the static HTML pages along with a bunch of images here. And all the things we did is to go to properties and make it as a static website, right? So we enabled the static website hosting on this bucket, and along with that, if you click on edit, I can show you some additional details. So we have to specify what is the index HTML page that has to be loaded when you try to hit that, depending upon what page you indicated here, the moment you hit the endpoint that is provided by the bucket, which this is nothing but the bucket name www.sri.net, and this is the region-specific endpoint for the S3 bucket, right? So and this is index10.html, right? So we could easily put something like this using a static web page, static website hosting on S3. Okay, so yeah, I will just share it like in a non-presentation mode like this. I hope you are able to see my presentation. Okay.
Yes, all good.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll talk briefly about one of the core services that AWS provides, which is your compute platform, right? So you have basically 3 options there when it comes to compute, right? You have the traditional EC2. If you go back to the console, if you go and pick the EC2, for example, this is nothing but a virtual server in the cloud, right? So you have an option to create your server instance on the cloud by picking up your choice of your processor. So, for example, if I just have to spin up an instance, all I need to do is to go to my EC2 console and launch an instance. That's it, right? Whenever you try to launch an instance, AWS provides what is the operating system that you want to pick. For example, like I can recent edition is the Mac OS, so even you can provision a Mac OS machine on AWS. I'll just pick any Amazon Linux instance, and then it will ask you for what is your choice of processors, right? So depending upon your use case, whether your use case is a burst, a memory intensive use case, or a compute intensive use case, or networking intensive use case, you have a choice of machine types that you can pick from. And let's say I pick the T2 Micro instance. Review and launch. You assign the amount of whether you want to assign the EBS volume and what kind of EBS volume and the volume. The capacity of the volume that you need to attach to this instance. You pick the basic settings and click on launch. That will provision an EC2 instance for you on the cloud. Okay, so that is this is where you are creating your virtual server instance in the cloud manually, right? With the so you have a choice. We'll come to the containers part of it.
Hello.
So basically, you depending. Hello, is there a question? So, sorry, I thought I heard something. Depending upon the type.
Only. I just was playing some songs. Just had to ask you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry?
No question, that was by mistake. I think he unmuted himself by mistake. Please go ahead.
I see. Okay. Okay. So no problem. So as I said, like you may have a compute intensive workload, or you may have a memory intensive workload. You need a high storage, high I/O, right? Storage with high I/O in input output operations. So different types of categories and different capabilities. For example, you have a choice of processors. You can either pick Intel or AMD, or there's a ARM based processors that AWS developed, which are called Graviton. So you could pick any of these choice of processors, plus all the options for all these combinations. There are about 275 instance types that you can provision from the compute from EC2 console, right? So talking about the containers, right? With the advent of microservices being very popular during your application development, a container is nothing but a very lightweight standalone executable package, including all the code runtime and libraries packaged as a one single container, and it runs on its own operating system. For example, as you can see, this is the host kernel, and you can have more than one containers running on a one single host machine, right? So each of these containers comes up with its own operating system, and depending upon what you want to put on this container, each of these containers will have different stack set, right? So the main advantage of using a container is, especially they are very lightweight, and they can come up very fast. So if you want to create a microservice, you could create a container definition, and you can run these containers on the EC2 instances that you already provisioned in your cloud, right? So so if you revise one more time, so you have a choice to put your applications directly on an EC2 instance, or you can containerize your applications and and manage them on EC2 instance. When it comes to container, AWS provides two choices, right? There's one thing called ECS, so where Amazon manages the deployment of container images onto EC2 instances that you provision. And there is also a serverless option called Fargate. We'll come to serverless in little more detail, but just think of Fargate. A Fargate service frees you up from provisioning all the underlying infrastructure, but you just provide the Fargate, your task definition, basically your container definition of what are the things that you want to put on a container, and it will spin up the resources behind the scenes, and it will provision the infrastructure for you, right? So AWS serverless is not just about lambdas. So we'll come to the serverless part. A serverless typically means that you don't have to provision anything by yourself, but it is managed by AWS, right? So typically, for example, if you are trying to expose a web service you don't have to put your web service on directly on an EC2 instance or on a container, but rather you can write it as a Lambda function, and you can deploy it as a Lambda function. So depending upon the number of invocations you make, you will be billed accordingly, right? You will be billed by the millisecond for your Lambda function executes, right? So what it means is that you don't have to make any predictions about how much usage this service is going to have, right? This is especially useful when you have a very spiky workload, right? Like, let's say, for example, you have a Thanksgiving sale, and you are trying to create an inventory service which checks the inventory. When you call that service with the item number, it will see if the inventory is in stock or not, right? So this is one of the very useful service and frequently used service, especially when you're talking about an event like Thanksgiving in the United States, right? So in such a case, you don't have to make any provision about any assumption about how many hits your service is going to get, right? So you package that service as a Lambda function, and AWS manages the scalability and other aspects of it, right? So that's a serverless option when it comes to compute. AWS Lambda is one of the very popular service when it comes to serverless compute, right? Most of the customers are moving towards that Lambda functions. For example, Uber, in India, you have Zomato. Those guys are switching their workloads to Lambda functions because they are very scalable and they are completely managed by AWS. AWS serverless portfolio is not just about lambdas. You have, as we just saw, the storage option. S3 is completely serverless. You don't specify what server your S3 bucket is going to reside on. So similarly, you have database, DynamoDB, Aurora. Those are all serverless options are available. One of the main service that is very popular is the API gateway. So an API gateway provides a REST interface proxy to your Lambda services, right? So and this is not just useful for just providing a REST endpoint, but rather you can have a socket-based endpoints as well as HTTPS, right? So other serverless options that you can think of are SQS, SNS, and so on, right? So one of the emerging area when it comes to IoT is the edge computing. So edge computing is where you want to make your devices that you have IoT devices that you have on the ground to be having the more functionalities. For example, if you have a camera scanner that will be able to recognize the objects that it is scanning, right? So these are the inferences these are the use cases for inference at edge. Those are the IoT options that you have when it comes to edge computing. We talked about some of the companies being completely cloud native, right? If you look at what it means by cloud native, I want to bring in some of the cloud native principles to you so that you can think of developing your applications fully on cloud rather than going with EC2 based model, hybrid model, right? So typically when you talk about cloud native model, you talk about pay as you go, and you don't make any assumptions about the usage patterns and things like that. And it has to be self-service, meaning that there should be no waiting time in order to bring up your service. Similarly, it has to be a globally distributed service by default, cross-region, cross-availability models for more fault tolerance and high utilization of your resources, right? So you don't want any of your EC2 provisioned EC2 capacity to be idle. So you want a high utilization for the resources that you already spun up on your AWS cloud. And there is also this concept of immutable cloud code deployments, meaning that you typically when there is a application upgrade from version 1 to version 2, you replace the existing application with the new version. Whereas in an immutable version, what you do is immutable code version, you never touch the container that has the code or the application. So what you do is you just turn off the previous one and you bring up the new one with the new set of code, right? So these principles will help you will help you create a cloud native application which is highly scalable and performant. So why are customers adopting a serverless first strategy, right? We just spoke about what does it mean by serverless, meaning that the serverless option will free you up from provisioning all your resources and having to worry about the low-level details on patching and things like that, right? So with the serverless first strategy, you focus on your application development more rather than on how much capacity do I have to provision, what is the networking that I have to do when I provision my EC2 instances and so on, right? So that brings you more agility, more performance, and because you are built by number of invocations, the cost will be overall less. And because it is a managed service that is taken care by AWS, it is fully secure, right? So we'll just talk about, we saw the static website, how you will host it on AWS, but let's talk about a typical website where you have a static content as well as user authentication and a set of backend services, right? So the reason why I touched upon all this EC2 container-based as well as the serverless options is to just bring you to this use case on typically how you will create a dynamic website on AWS, right? So we saw how you can serve a static content with the data with objects that are available on S3, right? So static HTML, your CSS and JavaScript files are residing on S3, and typically when a web client, where it could be a mobile user or a desktop user trying to hit a static web page, we typically go to the static web S3 buckets that host the static content, and of course some of them may be cached in CloudFront. And there are some managed services that are provided by AWS, especially for user directory and authentication services. Cognito. Cognito provides authentication and authorization services, and also federated logins using authentication providers such as Facebook. For example, login with Facebook, login with Gmail, things like that. You should be very easily able to configure using Cognito. So that so user registration as well as user verification, all these services services can be provided by Cognito. So once the user is authenticated, you for accessing your dynamic content, you typically would have to hit a REST service. Right, the logic that is related to a backend service, you can host it on a Lambda. Then that Lambda can be can invoke operations on a database, typically a DynamoDB, right? So a DynamoDB, as you guys might know, it's a key value data store, NoSQL data store that is that the AWS provides. One of the beauty of this architecture is most of the things are configurable. You don't have to write a single piece of code, right? To invoke a Lambda function, you could front end it with the API gateway, and that API gateway will protect your backend from DDoS attacks and things like that. With this architecture, you could plug in as many Lambda functions, basically your backend services as possible, as you need to the API gateway, and those Lambda services will provide the backend logic that is needed for your application. So with this, you will be able to create a website very easily. What I would suggest is, if you, I'll provide this link to you guys as well. So if you want to try this out, there is one service that AWS provides called Amplify, which is a managed service that helps you create a mobile application and a web application very easily. There is this is a publicly accessible workshop link, which I will give it to you, that it will show you the step-by-step things that you need to do in order to host a static website on Amplify, and how to do user management by connecting to Cognito serverless backend, which includes a Lambda function as well as a DynamoDB, and how to create a RESTful service. Right. So if you follow along with this workshop, you will find it very useful, and you precisely know the set of steps that you need to do for creating a dynamic website as well. That it may be very useful, especially when you are just getting started on AWS. You will know some of the patterns on how to create a dynamic website and completely serverless backends. As we said, like, the serverless backends will provide you a very highly scalable infrastructure. Any questions so far? I know this is too much to digest, but I just wanted to just touch upon the breadth and depth of services that will enable you to create a static website or a dynamic website, and pretty much anything for your use case demands. All right, so we briefly touched upon what a Cognito does, right? Amplify. An Amplify is a framework that helps you create a client that helps you create a client application that includes a set of libraries, CLI toolchain, and UI components, right? So with the CLI toolchain, what you will be able to do is you would be able to declaratively add features to your application. For example, if you want to add authentication to your application using Cognito with one single command on CLI on your client application side, you'll be able to provision a Cognito user directory and add it to your application. Similarly, an app sync is a service that will be used to add GraphQL capabilities to your application. GraphQL, I'm not going to cover it in this presentation, but it is a replacement for a RESTful API. With GraphQL, you will be able to bundle a set of RESTful calls into one single call, so that everything will be resolved one time, right? For example, if you're trying to get you're exposing a service that provides you the local weather and the list of restaurants at a given place, you will be able to easily create a GraphQL API by passing the location. With REST, you would have to call individual services, like what is my weather at this location? What are the list of restaurants that are available at this given location? But with GraphQL, you'll be able to bundle these two calls into one single call, and GraphQL logic behind the scenes will be able to figure out where to fetch the data from and return it as a one single response. So it's being very popular, especially when you're trying to do mobile applications. So as you have less number of back and forths, your performance will be obviously high. And some of the other services that you will be able to plug into your application is Pinpoint, for example. Pinpoint is a marketing solution that will be able where you'll be able to reach out to the customers over email or SMS. Or even WhatsApp, right? So those kind of things you'll be able to add with simple commands within the Amplify CLI. Along with this, there are a bunch of developer tools that Amplify provides to be able to build, test, and deploy your application. So the next slide talks about various backend service features that you can plug into your applications. One of the beauty of this is you'll be able to plug in analytics and predictions. So even AIML can be plugged into your applications with the Amplify CLI. Oh, and by the way, the link that I showed you, that it covers how Amplify CLI could be used to plug in user authentication into your application. It's a very similar pattern that you, for example, if you want to add predictions or personalized recommendations to your mobile application, you will be able to use Amplify CLI. We briefly touched upon databases. Typically database comes in two flavors, right? Relational as well as non-relational. Relational is your traditional Oracle, MySQL kind of databases, whereas when it comes to NoSQL, it will be DynamoDB, MongoDB, and things like that, right? AWS provides a set of database tools that that you can pick and choose from for your, depending upon your use case. So typically, when it comes to enterprise, most of enterprises uses Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server. So we have an Amazon RDS solution that can provide the commercial grade features, and there are community databases like MySQL, Postgres. Those are community databases, and they will not have as many features as your commercial databases. But they are cheaper than, they are obviously cheaper than commercial databases. Now, with Amazon RDS, you have an option called Aurora. So Aurora comes in two flavors, MySQL and Postgres. So they enhance the core database engine for both this community databases like MySQL and Postgres, and added the commercial features into this community databases. So you get the best of both worlds, right? So there are customers who are able to switch from commercial databases that they are using to Aurora, and they have a significant cost savings. Similarly, we have document-oriented databases like DynamoDB and Amazon DocumentDB, in-memory stores where the data entirely resides in memory. The Amazon Elasticache, which comes in two flavors, right, with the Memcached flavor as well as Redis flavor. You have Graph database, typically used for social networking kind of scenarios, a time series database, and the Ledger database, which is like an immutable database where you can just add records, but you cannot modify or delete them, right? So depending upon the use case, you have the right choice of database options that you can pick and choose from for your applications. We'll touch upon AML briefly, and that will be by last, considering the time that we have, that will be the last topic of my discussion today, and we'll leave some room for Q&A, right? So if you look at the AML stack that AWS provides, the stack is divided into 3 layers, right? So this is the bottom layer is a framework layer, right? So this is for expert machine learning practitioners who has knowledge about the frameworks like TensorFlow, MXNet, Keras, and so on. So they are very comfortable with using these frameworks by themselves, and they have the knowledge to provision the infrastructure for depending upon what they are trying to do. So when it comes to infrastructure, AWS has, as I said, like 275 choice of 275 options to choose from, and especially if you want to use GPUs, and there are some chips which are specifically created for ML kind of use cases, right? For example, Inferentia is one of the chip that AWS added to its options, which would be used for inferences, right? So similarly, the middle layer, this is for the developers who are comfortable with machine learning, but they don't want to worry about the low-level details on what kind of frameworks that they use. Instead, they want to quickly build, deploy, tune, and train a model on AWS. This ML services layer is for them. SageMaker is the most popular tool in this layer, right? So with SageMaker Studio IDE, it has the built-in provisions to be able to create your notebooks and use the existing machine learning models that we already have, or create your own model. And you have an option to pick where your model has to run, what kind of instance your model has to run. You should be able to do it in one single IDE. At the top, which is the most most popular layer, is the AI services. Because we want to put the machine learning in the hands of every developer, there are set of APIs that AWS has created. For example, recognition is something that you can directly plug into your application, and if you upload an image, it will identify what are all the objects that your image has, right? So similarly, we have text to speech, you have transcribe options, you have personalization options, you have forecasting, fraud detection, and even chatbots that you can that AI services will offer, right? So if you look at one of the use case, right? So this is the use case. So user uploads a image onto S3, right? As you know, once this creates an event which will be able to trigger a Lambda function. This Lambda function makes a call, takes this image that the user uploads, calls the AWS recognition API, and it identifies all the facial details from the image that got uploaded. The facial details are then are sent into another S3 bucket, which will be read by Athena, and we'll use Amazon QuickSight dashboard to show the customer demographic details on the dashboard, right? So basically, here we are creating a intelligent application which depending upon the customer images, it will be able to identify what real-time sentiment of the customer. So similarly, you can plug in the interaction between Lambda and the AI service like recognition will be over REST. So you can plug in, for example, personalization to do personalized recommendations for your application. Yeah, with this, I want to conclude my presentation and leave some time for Q&A. So hopefully it is beneficial to you. Please explore all the services that, I mean, obviously you will not be able to get a expert knowledge on all these services because there are about 190 plus of them. But depending upon your use case, if you go to aws.amazon.com/solutions, then you will be able to see there are in the industry-wise use cases, and some of the reference architectures are also discussed. So once you know your use case, check there if there is any reference architecture that you can leverage right away and build your application on top of it. So I hope this gives you some oversight of some of the services that AWS has to offer. Obviously, we can have follow-up and if needed, and we can talk about the different use cases that you may have. Now I will leave the floor up for Q&A.
Thank you, Krishna. If you could stop your sharing, I can put you on spotlight and people can ask you questions. Krishna's colleague, Sedu, is also on the call. Sedu handles a part of the entrepreneurship portfolio. So she's put her email ID out there on the chat. If there's anything that you would like, probably the best way to do is to connect with Sedu, and then she will connect you with the right people. Cool. Any questions for Krishna?
Can I ask Setu to perhaps elaborate a little bit on her note she put in chat about technical help, and if you're a student startup, and maybe then Krishna can add, but I just see Setu put a great offer out there. Can you tell us a little more? Do you want it from certain parts of the world? How much can people expect, et cetera, based on your offer for technical help and architecture to be reviewed, Setu?
Yeah, so after every session, we generally connect startups with experts, so we have a team of solution architects and account managers who help startups to get started with AWS or answer any technical queries they have. So if anyone in this group has any queries post the session, they can directly reach out to me or Krishna. We'll be able to support you on that front.
Great.
Cool. Any specific questions to Krishna and Sedu here? Or else, of course, they're always available at the end of the email. Just do, whenever you mail it, kindly put that you are connecting through the Thai University ecosystem so that it's easier for them to recognize you and probably give you royal treatment.
And just keep in mind, stay on, by the way, Krishna and Setu, but you have 2 more sessions coming up regarding cloud technology. So we'll finish this one up first in the next few minutes and then roll right into the others. But also, Pradeep, you want to remind people that you need answers to certain pieces of team data. I know some people came on late.
I think some of you joined late. Yes. So I'm putting in 2 links in the chat. If you could go to those links, one of the sheet has just one sheet where you need to fill in some questions that your facilitator for the bootcamp has asked, especially relating to why you want to attend the bootcamp and is there anything specific that you want to derive out of it. And the other one is more of the team details. These are the details that we will be using to help you get the cloud credits, as well as to connect you with people from the ecosystem who could be your future investors or future mentors or even future partners, so to say. So just check everything across your team. Just make sure that all the data is right so that you don't miss out on any of our messages or emails, as well as it's easy for us to create the persona of your company. So the PR team can make you really, you're good, we will try to make you really good. So there are more eyes watching you kind of thing, right? So I put those 2 links, preferably the team captain, if you could do it. You need to, there are 3 tabs on the second sheet. If you would look at all the 3 tabs and see data related to your team, that would be great. Cool. So thank you so much, Krishna and Sedu, for being with us. It's been a pleasure having you here and talking to them. I've already got a couple of direct messages on my WhatsApp. I've connected them to Sedu. you will be getting some mails and messages from these startups. Please do give them the best that you can do personally and as a company as well. At the end of the day, when the ecosystem grows, I'm sure all of us grow. That's the whole intention of Thai University. It's not a transactional thing. It's to help really grow the ecosystem well. We want everyone on this call to be a winner, although it's a long. Thank you so much once more, Krishna.
And if it's possible to stay on for about 15 minutes, there may be some things you can add at the end of the next speaker, who's one of the AWS scouts. So if you can, just stay on and just watch chat. We'll continue to ask people to put their messages or requests into chat. It's a very efficient way of doing that, right? So,
and also just to get updates on the content of the workshop, I'm launching a small poll. If you just give your answers to the poll, the poll goes on now. Yeah. Lopez, you can see the poll?
Yes, all good. In fact, let me ask Sethu and Krish a question while this is going on. So let's say we have people here who are clearly a mix of technical founders and business founders, right? And obviously, you just covered a subject that could become pretty complicated. If they don't have a CTO or a technical co-founder, what would you suggest might be one or two avenues to think about to utilize AWS's capabilities in the short run? Right? Should they outsource it to an AWS partner? Any ideas of that nature?
Yeah, what I would suggest is just first start with the essay, so solutions architect, and obviously when we start working with you together, so if we really see a use case, maybe we will engage you engage with an account manager, and from there. A partner may be involved depending upon how big is your use case, and or you may be able to do it by yourself, or if you don't have the implementation capability, then obviously the partner will be engaged. So do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, so I mean, Krishna covered it. So we also have a free trainings which we do for our customers. So if anyone would like to get trained on that, I could share the links to the trainings that are happening next month. So that is also one way to get started.
Yeah, in fact, when we put out the info on the credits, we'll add it to the bottom of that poster in early May. So if you put it here for the people that are on currently, that'd be great, and we'll capture it for future use as well. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's time to end the poll, Pradeep. And
cool. Yeah. So let me share my screen. Good. Our next speaker for the day is Al Ibrahim Tareen, who's an AWS University Scout. And it's kind of a learning experience for me as well. I always thought there were baseball scouts and football scouts, and now AWS has a scout. Amazing. And there's one very unique feature about Tareen is that he's also in a campus in a university like you as a student as well. So he will bring in those practical perspectives. What Al is going to speak about is how can students use AWS credits. Al has been a returning software engineering intern with Amex, and he's also the founder and chief strategist of the Computer Science Association at Houston College. And he's also an AWS University Scout, as well as a Web Services and Open Scout. Over to you, Al.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. If you could, Assalamu alaikum, if you could put your video on.
Yes, sharing it now. One moment.
You might make Al a co-host just in case.
Yes.
It's helpful. Great. Welcome, Al. You have a whole hour to catch up on us because you're on Central Time, right? We're closer, and the people in India are even closer to the weekend. So thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, it's my pleasure. Let me share. One moment. Are you able to see?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. How's
And
that?
it's okay to make these slides available through our shared folder in a
Yes.
couple of days to everybody in the program. Great. Okay, all yours.
Okay, awesome. Hello, guys. My name is Al Ibrahim Tareen. I am currently an AWS University Scout, and it is my pleasure to talk to you about AWS Activate, including how you can better use the AWS credits. So today on the agenda, we're going to talk about the top startup challenges, AWS Activate founders versus portfolio, how to apply and get started, and learn more. So I am a startup founder myself, and we all encounter many resource issues, right, when we launch. So these are some of the common issues. So we need to learn how to thrive on limited resources, how to validate our product, and also how to do customer acquisition and go to market efficiently and fast. And additionally, we also need to find the right technical guidance and also build the best business practice architecture. So that's where AWS Activate comes in. So with the AWS Activate, it was launched in, oops, one second. It was launched in October 2013, and it was on a mission to help startups succeed by providing tools and resources to help quickly get started. So regardless if you're a small early stage company or more advanced digital business, one sec. With free tools and resources to quickly get started on AWS and accelerate their growth and development. Our commitment to supporting startups has never been more steadfast, and it is no wonder so many startups build on AWS. So let's go ahead and talk a bit about some of the Activate benefits. So some of the Activate benefits is you are you're able to get started on AWS at zero cost through our AWS credits. Furthermore, you're able to build your AWS cloud skills through our 80 credits for self-paced labs offered through Quick Labs. And additionally, you can get technical support, which is through our AWS technical support credits. Additionally, you can also accelerate your growth and development through the AWS Activate console and save time and money through exclusive offers, discounts, and free offerings through our partners and vendors. And finally, you can reach thousands of prospects through co-marketing opportunities with AWS, including AWS events and blogs. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the AWS Activate console. So the AWS Activate console is designed, let me move this one moment. The AWS Activate console is designed to support you through every stage of your startup journey, from your initial idea to scaling your MVP to securing your first customer, to scaling your business on AWS and beyond. It is full of tools and resources to help you quickly get started on AWS and accelerate your growth and development. By matching AWS content, tools, and resources with your Activate profile, interests, and usage of AWS, it delivers personalized recommendations on a wide range of topics. The Activate console also makes it easy to track and monitor your AWS credits and costs to take advantage of exclusive offers and get real-time updates on the health of your AWS environment. So this is a real look of the AWS Activate console. And on the left side, you can see that is where you will see the health of your startup, including the cost of your upcoming bill, your month-to-month bill, and just a detailed breakdown of your billing as well. And on the middle screenshot, that's the Tech Hub. And that is where you will get more personalized recommendations depending on what AWS resources you're using. And you also have the ability to ask questions to an expert regarding your startup needs. And on the far right screenshot, that is also part of the Activate console, and that is where you can discover all the offers available to you. So as a startup founder myself, I wish I had access to such offers. They have a lot of great offers available, including bookkeeping, accounting, and it's definitely worth checking out. It will save a lot of time and hassle during the early stages of your startup. So what can AWS credits be used for? So you can almost build anything on AWS, and the AWS credits, they can almost be used for most of the services. There are a handful of services that the AWS credits cannot be used for, but for the most part, we try to make sure that the AWS credits can be used for most common situations or circumstances of your startup. So they can be used for over 175 fully featured services, including our machine learning, specifically our SageMaker that you might have seen in the previous presentation, computation, databases, security, storage, dev tools, whatever it is, we've got you covered for the most part. Here are some things, however, that you cannot use AWS credits for, right? So you cannot use it for Amazon Mechanical Turk or AWS support if your AWS support credits are exhausted. And also the AWS Marketplace, and also Amazon Route 53 domain name registration or transfer. That's a bit less common. You also can use it obviously for cryptocurrency or mining. Let's talk quickly about QuickLabs. So QuickLabs is a platform where you can become a cloud expert. You get free 80 credits for QuickLabs, and you could learn a wide variety of skills, including big data, machine learning, infrastructure, DevOps, through an expert hands-on led course through this platform. So this is also a great opportunity for those not tech savvy wanting to learn more about the cloud tools and the cloud technologies available. So let's talk about the AWS technical support credit. So the AWS support provides a mix of tools and technology, people, and programs designed to proactively help you optimize performance, lower costs, and innovate faster. We save time for your team by helping you move faster in the cloud and focus on your core business. We are determined to make our customers successful on their cloud journey and address requests that range from answering best practice questions, guidance on configurations, all the way to break and fix problem resolution. On behalf of our customers, we are focused on solving some of the toughest challenges that hold you back in your cloud journey. Sometimes that means helping you troubleshoot an issue, but more often it involves looking around corners to find ways for you to better utilize AWS services, answer best practice questions, and provide guidance on configuration. We focus on helping you achieve the outcome you need to make your business successful. It is our approach to support that sets AWS apart. The developer support, we recommend the AWS developer support if you are testing or doing early development on AWS and want the ability to get technical support during business hours, as well as general architecture guidance as you build and test. And for the business support, we recommend AWS Business Support if you are running production workloads on AWS and want 24/7 access to technical support from engineers, access to Health API, and contextual architecture guidance for your use cases. So these are some of our vendors that you can take advantage of exclusive offers from, which includes our Amazon Business Prime, Zendesk, Stripe, Datadog, etc. And these cover a wide variety of solutions and service categories that provide discounts, free trial periods, credits, and other startup-friendly perks designed to help you grow and succeed. All of these offers and more are available in the Activate console, making it easy for you to discover and redeem an offer in minutes. So go ahead, take advantage of the exclusive discounts, credits, free trials, all provided by our participating vendors. And there are a wide variety of tools, including Intuit, HubSpot, Zendesk, right at your fingertips. Every offer supports you building your business and accelerating your growth, and new offers are added weekly. There are also co-marketing opportunities available with AWS, so you can collaborate on marketing opportunities throughout the year and attend our webinars, case studies, events, read our blog posts, learn about our sponsorships, and overall have a better idea of our innovations at AWS, what we're working towards, and our new developments occurring. So let's go ahead and take a deep dive into the AWS Activate Founders and AWS Activate portfolio. So the AWS Activate Founders are for self-funded, bootstrapped, and unbacked startups that are not affiliated with an Activate provider. So this means you have not received an org ID to take advantage of AWS credits. However, an AWS portfolio are for self-funded and funded up to Series A startups that are affiliated with an Activate provider. So an Activate provider could be anyone from a VC to an accelerator to an educational institution. If you have or plan on using a 5-digit org ID, most likely you would sign up for an AWS Activate portfolio tier. So let's talk about the portfolio benefits. So you get $1,000 of AWS Activate credits that are valid for 2 years right off the bat. And also you get technical support, which includes the $350 in AWS developer support credits that are valid for 1 year. You get access to the 7 core AWS Trusted Advisor best practice checks, and you get a personalized view of the health of the AWS services and alerts when your resources are impacted. Additionally, you also get email access to 1 primary cloud support associate and general architecture guidance, and you get access to the Activate console as well, which includes the benefits and the offers as mentioned. And by the way, the Activate console, it was not available to both portfolio and the founders. I'm sorry, it was only available to portfolio tier accounts. So now they're available also to founder tier accounts. So if you are a bootstrap startup, you still get AWS Activate, which is great. So let's talk about the portfolio application criteria. As mentioned, you have to be self-funded or funded startup. So you have to be in the pre-seed, angel, seed, depth, up to a Series A. You have to have a 5-digit Activate provider's organization ID to apply. And you have to have a company or university website and LinkedIn profile for when you're applying. And you have to sign up with your AWS account. If you don't have one, you can create one. And you must not have previously received and AWS Activate credits that is more than what you're applying for. So if you've received, let's say, $5,000 in AWS Activate credits, and you have a new org ID that will give you $1,000 in AWS Activate credits, you can't take advantage of the 1,000 AWS Activate credits because it's lower than your redeemed 5,000. And if you want to start from the 1,000, do the $1,000 first, and then the $5,000, and that'll put you up to 6,000. So you just do the common denominator first. And in aggregate, you have to ensure that you don't exceed $100,000 in redeemed AWS Activate credits. Lastly, your startup must be 10 years or younger. So how do you apply and get started? So you can get started by going to aws.com/activate and choose which tier you'd like to apply to. And the application process, it takes just a few minutes. So you log into your AWS account. If you don't have one, you can create one. You go to this website, aws.com/activate, and you click on apply, and you follow the instructions, you complete the application and submit. On average, it takes about 7 to 10 business days for an approval to come in. And once that comes in, you just go to your welcome email, you click the validation link, and you can get started. Now, once your application is approved and you click the validation link on your email, you might be confused. And that's why I would recommend you all to check out the Activate Frequently Asked Questions page. And that page has a wide variety of helpful questions that might solve a lot of your confusion or concerns and make your onboarding process easier. So I would like to thank you all for taking part in my presentation, and you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions regarding the AWS Activate, you can reach out to me and I will help connect you with AWS experts to get your questions resolved. Thank you.
Al, thank you so much. Pradeep, or Al, can you stay on and maybe see if any chat questions come up short term? And if not, we know how to find you offline, given that we're sort of working through the last set of details for our teams. And probably there'll be a lot of questions that you can help us with in May. Are you able to stay on now for any immediate questions though?
Yes, of course.
Awesome, good. Just watch them in chat while we finish up this poll here, asking people to, in the next 10 or 15 seconds, to do this while we get our third speaker lined up.
I'll share the screen.
Al, are you, most of your questions that we can send you more US related, or it doesn't matter given that we're working with students from around the world?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Good deal. Actually, I think we will likely probably have you back again in the next couple of months, only because I think you presented a lot of info that'll become even more useful to the student teams likely in the month of May. So I think sometimes you don't know how to get prepared, and you were trying to do that, but I think seeing it on the back end again might be useful. So thanks so much.
So,
thank you so much, Dr. Lopez.
Okay, we're going to close the poll.
Yes, that's done. And yeah, we're ready for Sri. Dr. Lopez, if you could introduce Sri.
Okay, awesome. We're on our third section of the webinar today. And you guys are in for a treat, because here's somebody who's built a company, exited a company, started more companies, but also the part that's not on the slide, even though he has a lot of background in cloud and AWS and a number of things, with government contracts, et cetera, that may or may not be useful to you today, but he's been there, done that. I always say, Shri, hopefully you'll tell us about some great do's and some don'ts, right? Because there are many things that you learn along the way. And so in that regard, thank you. The other part I'm going to mention very quickly, he'll probably cover it at the end. For any of you in a remote healthcare startup, Shri has been very, very generous to tell us that through his foundation, he wants to work with our student teams that are trying to change the world and especially healthcare of people. So in that regard, we'll be putting out more info. And I believe, Shri, we sent you some applications in that regard. He's willing to look at possible grants and or investments into remote healthcare startups because that's built or that's in alignment with his personal mission. So with that, Shri, who is located in the greater Washington, D.C. area, actually in Virginia, thanks so much, and all over to you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Let me get started here.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, you are on in our TIE DC chapter on our board, not a charter member. Remind us again of your involvement with TIE there.
Charter member, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But thanks for giving back, and especially to our student population. They're going to do some stuff that you and I will be just amazed at in the upcoming years. So back to
Absolutely. I'm already amazed with what I've seen so far. I'm so glad I got connected here. Guys, thanks a lot. So what I'm going to talk about today, as Paul said, I was the first worldwide public sector solutions architect for Amazon Web Services back in 2010. Worldwide public sector is headquartered here in the Washington, D.C. area. Today, what I'm going to cover is my journey in the last 10, 11 years. Actually, it started even before I joined AWS. And what I have learned building my own company and helping several startups, large enterprises in different verticals. And the agenda goes like this. It's just really, my learnings in terms of what is output versus outcome, how we manage outputs to maximize our outcomes, how we can be very customer centric about our innovations, and towards the end, get more into how to leverage the Activate program and some of the things that that were touched upon earlier, and hopefully leave enough room for Q&A. That's the agenda. So, a little background about Rain Cloud. We had a really successful by the book 5-year run. Very first year, we were the fastest company to get a premier status. About, I don't know, hundreds of, couple of 100,000 partners that AWS has or more now. 0.1% of those partners are considered premier. And then in that, TechTarget picked, among the premier partners, they picked us as the top partner in the second year. In the third year, we were picked by Gartner on their Magic Quadrant as the leader on the niche quadrant. In the next year, we were picked by the Northern Virginia Technology Council, which is the second largest tech council out after the Bay Area Council, as the #1 company under $50 million. And then in the final year, we won a $950 million contract with the US Department of Defense and won the DoD CIO award before that contract got pulled out. And then about the same year, within that year, we got acquired by Hitachi. So there are a few things that as you go through your startup journey. So one thing that I'm going to talk about today is outcome-based. Like why were we, so successful and differentiated among others is really focused on outcomes. Outcomes meaning driving a behavior change. So for example, after all this, 10 years into this, now that we're still talking about how to use AWS. So to me, it was, if some of you may not even have been there or you're so young, right? So when we were going to the internet transformation, it was normal to pay $100, $150 an hour to create a web page, to write HTML code to create a web page. All of you will probably laugh at that idea. right? Why? Because machines create web page. You just author the content and code is created. So all this, the cloud adoption in my mind, but the theory is that, we shouldn't really have to hire people to adopt cloud or write infrastructure as code. So what we built is a low code platform that allows business owners and non-technical people to focus on their functional work in leveraging cloud. That's why it was game changing. That's why we won this contract over most established companies, name it Accenture, Deloitte, IBMs of the world, right? And in fact, one of my colleagues, after I left AWS, I mean, the head of professional services said, Sri, you left the company and did what we could not do inside AWS, was, at one of the reInvent, the global shows. So I want you to focus on having a dream, having a, you just be bold to create your game-changing ideas, and you will get there if you persist. Now I'm going to talk about how did I even get here? Why did I even do this? Why did I get into AWS? Is because what Paul mentioned is basically in 2007, when I was working for a think tank for the US federal government, the MITRE Corporation, in their healthcare program, I was very aware of Office of National Coordinator, Health IT, which we're still struggling in this pandemic time to really digitize our health records and make meaningful use out of them. Actually, they're digitized, but we're still not able to make meaningful use out of them. But at about the same time, my mom was diagnosed with leukemia in India, and the 6 months that I experienced there, it was unfortunate. We knew going in, the prognosis was only 6 months, but she wanted to go back to my town. She didn't want to get treated in the city. But the worst part is that she didn't get to go back to the town. And that left a lasting impact on me. I said, with the knowledge I have, I should be able to do something here, right? And that's when in late 2007, early 2008, I Googled and ran into somebody that posted instructions on how to enable electronic health records on Amazon. I mean, trust me, back then, nobody knew what Amazon Web Services was, right? But for me, it was a mind-blowing experience, because with 60 cents in 1 hour, I was able to get a electronic health record up and running. But from there, nobody in the government wanted to believe in cloud at the time. I was a firm believer. I ended up, becoming the lead on President Obama's Cloud First initiative, then the AWS Public Sector Solution Architect. And every time, though, it just bothered me is I really wanted to create this healthcare platform. To enable people to change their healthcare behavior, which is very obvious now, the need of it because of COVID, right? But the point I want to make is when you have a purpose and passion and persist, then the payout will come, right? I just want you to take that clear message from you. And now I'm going to talk about my journey, about all these experiences going through this, right? One plug before I get into that is I'm fortunate enough now to focus my time. I intend to focus hopefully the rest of my life in just creating this health services platform and the idea is to empower patients with their health and well-being to take care of themselves at home. So in the last stages, you can actually spend more time with your family members as opposed to running around hospitals, which is meaningless anyways, because medical help has given up on you anyways. Then you prevent readmissions and have engaged care. So if I'm a heart failure patient, like all of us, hearts will fail over time when you're 70, 80. The simplest thing that you can do is to measure your weight every day. If you don't do that, the weight shooting up would potentially mean that fluid is accumulating in your body. And if that fluid accumulation is not taken care, you get hospitalized, you may catch up infection 20, 30% of the times, and you may die out of the infection. So the simple measure, that behavioral change, that outcome is being so difficult in decades to come through. But we are in a very interesting world where AWS and the IoT technologies, it makes it so simple. And it has to be like that, because it's, it's easy to say, cover your eyes, nose, and mouth for prevent yourself from COVID, but it's very difficult to do, right? It's a simple idea, difficult to do. But I think we are at the crux of where I can just sleep on a bed and get off a bed and my bed takes my weight, or I step on a weight scale and my weight is taken. I'm not using an app. I'm not, because if we tell the people to use an app, that's too much, right? But so what are those killer ideas that you have in preventative health, food management, exercise management, stress management, medication management, symptom management? If you have any of that, please contact me. I'd love to hear from you and we can work together. So before I get into this, let me just tell you why focusing on outcome is so important as opposed to output. So let me just play this 1 minute video for you. Okay, hopefully all of you can relate to this. Sorry. So what it is like output is something that we control. Like for example, creating a mobile app to improve health and well-being, right? Outcome is influenced by what we create, right? Better health and well-being of our customers. Naturally, we tend to focus on this, but we should focus on this. Same thing, outputs are intermediate results. So if I say create a video, podcast, blogs to run a marketing campaign, what the real outcome is how many people clicked on it and you managed to convert them to using an app, right? Same thing, the output is related to changes in the ability to and availability of products and services. So again, just making health advice and well-being available on your phone, but then how did it lead to happier lives? So the thing to remember is need. So if I say let's say a bank example, right? Need to deposit a check has always been there. The day teller machines, ATMs came and I could deposit on ATM, right? I don't have to go into the bank. So my outcome, my behavior change is now I'm able to drive through and deposit checks. The day I'm able to take a picture of a check and deposit, I don't even have to drive through the bank. I can do it from my house. So the need didn't change, but the outcome changed. So and that's a behavior change. So remember that while we naturally focus on a lot of outputs, what you should really do is focus on outcomes. Once you change your mindset, your team's mindset on outcome, I think you will see, amazing differences that you'll face. So what I'm going to do now is jump into relate to what all the stuff that was being talked about on Amazon and why you should do differentiated work and not undifferentiated work, like worrying about security and all the illities, right? So if you look at your work, right? About 50% of your work is functional. That is what you are set to do, whatever your mission might be in that vertical. About 50% is non-functional, security, availability. All that, I think Amazon provides, or an amazing opportunity for you to work. Now, within this functional work, about 50% of it is productive work, and another 50% is rework. So if you think about some background noise, if you can please mute your phones, or yeah. Um, so now what I'm going to talk about, how can you manage it in such a way that first of all, you take the minimal work coming in, right? Not get carried away with all the things that you think would be awesome. And then how you minimize this rework. So it's sort of like that hare versus turtle story. If you do the right things and you'll get to really maximizing your productive work. And as far as this non-functional work goes, and that's the beauty of what cloud provides, it's how you automate and avoid managing servers and all that. Just use those serverless, constructs and so on. So we'll dive deeper into each of these and based on my lessons learned. Right? The first thing is reduce work. So as a part of reducing work, right? So you have new customers and existing customers, and they're all feeding in requirements, right? And if, again, today you may not have a sales team, you may not have product management, you're acting like everything. You're the salesperson, you're the product manager, you're the product owner, right? But one framework that I found really, really helpful is to use this budget, authority, need, and timeline. Be sincere about what you're picking up as work to do, right? First of all, I would start with need. Does the need of my customer match what value I can add to that customer? Be very, very, don't get excited about every new opportunity, right? So because focus on that and connect with the customer on the need first, right? Then look at the person that you're talking to. Do they have the authority at a minimum to influence that buying decision, and hopefully have actually the authority to make the decision? Then see if they have a compelling timeline that, like we need to really meet something in the next 3 months, right? And do they have the budget to support it, right? And I mean, even through my experience after going into really large enterprises, you will be so surprised how many times organizations don't apply this simple framework. If you don't apply this simple framework, what happens is you'll work backward. It's sort of like some of you, if you have not gone through this experience, you'll experience this, right? The first, I want you guys to stay entrepreneurs for good. That's the best thing in life. If you go to seek a job and then somebody says, we need a clearance. Here in the DC area, there are people who say that they need a clearance to give you a job. Well, if you or they will say, we need we need you to be a citizen, or you need you to be a green card holder, or you need you to be a H1 holder, right? So it's every time when people are, same thing happens in product. We want your product to be HIPAA certified or something else. So don't get carried away with those things. Focus on, first of all, will you actually spend some time with us to use the product once together and see if the need is there or not, right? Once you qualify this, then you have reduced drastically on what amount of work you take in. The next thing is this notion of building it iteratively versus incrementally. So let's say somebody says, I want a red Ferrari, right? If most of the time what I see teams doing is, you build one wheel, and then, then the 4 wheels, put it on a chassis, then put a body on it, and then put all the steering seats. So until this might take you months, years. The sad part is you're not even getting any feedback from the customer till the end. And obviously by then the customer has moved on, right? But if you try to take this like this, first thing, you just put a simple skateboard with wheels and you tell the customer, get on it. Customer might say, and this is exactly what Amazon does. And when lots of times when I was at Amazon, people were like, what is this? Like, this is not even a product. Why did Amazon put this out, right? But there's beauty in it, right? So the customer might resist and say, well, this is not what I asked for. But you say, okay, it's okay. Just please get on it. You use it. Tell us what you like, what you don't like about it. So they may say, oh, I don't like the red color. Oh, easy. I can fix the blue color. Oh, I want some handle so that I don't fall off this, right? So you go back, put a handle on it, and then you say, okay, now try it for some more time. And they'll say, oh yeah, if I like it, if I can get a seat and some pedals, so I can move faster and move comfortably. And then they say put an engine on it, and it's motorbike, and they may just enjoy that. I mean, that's really all they wanted. They may never need a car, right? But the beauty of approaching this iteratively like this is you are constantly engaging with the customer, and you are able to service and give the right product that meets their right need, right? And I just want to let you know, like even Renaissance people, when Mona Lisa was painted, it was not painted incrementally. It was painted iteratively, right? So one thing I can't emphasize enough is your ability to iteratively go to your customer, not your business, get feedback from your customer, and continuously build that, right? So the next thing after you have tackled this, the customer versus product management problem, is to minimize rework. In the previous case, you have just minimized work, right? And then the next thing, off the work that you picked, how do you minimize rework? So this is your dilemma in communicating that back to the developers. It's unbelievable how many times we keep on telling ourselves, why don't the developers get it? I mean, if you are an entrepreneur, right, or a business owner, you'll see that this struggle of communication, right? So here is a fundamental thing that you need to understand. We tend to write ourselves out of the way, or and then you'll get to this first agreement. You say, oh yeah, I'm glad we're all in agreement, but you still don't know. Like, so here in this case, they may be thinking of a square, circle, and triangle, and everybody is thinking, yeah, the other person is also thinking what you're thinking. But what you need to do is, let's put on a whiteboard, or in this case, a blackboard, like what you really understood, right? So when you draw pictures and tell stories, not just write stories, right, or write requirements, right? Don't do that. If you have to really put it in picture form, and then you iterate over that. What happens is it's the context that comes together, and you will eventually agree. But if you don't spend time here and jump in to build something, you will inevitably rework. And rework is 50% of the wasted effort, right, among the productive work. So let me give you another story around this. Let's say you went to a beach and you enjoyed the time there, and you wrote 50 pages of what you did at the beach, and then you gave a bunch of pictures. To one person you gave the write-up, the other person you gave a bunch of pictures. If I go and ask the person, what is the pattern of the shirt you're wearing, the likelihood of the person, even though you may have described in nth degree of detail in 50 pages, the likelihood of that person answering is very less compared to the person that looks at a picture will definitely tell you that, right? But also now I ask, what was the smell of the flowers? Or what was the music that was playing, right? Neither of them will tell you. But that's in your mind. Those two factors may be the best thing that you experienced, right? But that context does not carry. The importance of what I'm trying to tell you here is, it is very important that you make your developers tell the stories back to you. Don't try to solve the problem by writing more and more to clarify, right? Pause, make them tell those back to you, and you will see a phenomenal change in the amount of context that you will be communicating and reducing the rework. Now, all these things, guys, that I talked to you is in this book. It's a game changer for me. And I strongly suggest that that you read this book. It's beautiful. Now I'm moving to the next stage, which is the non-functional work, all the ilities. So we kind of covered up to this point, right? So we covered this first, and then we covered this first. We reduced the communication gap here. We reduced the input of work here, filtering ideas. Now here, you build something. There is a lot to do. How do you automate your testing? How do you automate your functional testing, performance testing, security testing, release, operations, right? That's a lot of work. And that's not what differentiates you, right? The fact that your product met HIPAA certification doesn't mean anything to you, from the value you bring to your customers. So you want to automate and minimize this work, right? So next, I'm going to talk about that. So in a typical cycle, what happens is a lot of these, you're doing some requirement analysis, architecture, development, and testing and deployment, right? And you see this big wave here. Trust me, even today, after 10, 12 years of, Amazon and rest of the cloud providers, the power of DevOps and everything, you won't believe how many companies are still at this stage, right? Don't be a startup trying to get stuck here. Then you're not going to differentiate yourself. So what this leads to is increased development cost, increased time to market, and a lot of buggy software. Because as you add more and more features, you can't hire yourself to get more and more testers, and you can't do that testing fast enough. You barely have testing ability for the new features you develop. You won't have it for testing everything before you release, right? And your releases will get delayed and your customers will be unhappy. What you should embrace is this culture of DevSecOps, culture of shift left mindset. Because look here, if you can avoid that rework, if you can get the design properly, right? What would cost you $80 to fix and redo? If you catch that after a build is there, it'll cost you $240. And if it is, if this is 3x, and then that goes into 10x, and it goes into 100x. I mean, I put a source of this, information. I don't know whether it's really 100x, but I can tell you for sure it is a phenomenal difference. And besides the cost, when you get everything that when you have proper qualification criteria, you reduce rework, you have that context and collaboration going, you have this automation going, life will be beautiful. And you don't need rock stars for these guys. I mean, a lot of people, when we were going through acquisition of RainCloud, a lot of really large companies asked me, Sri, how did you build this studio type culture, right? One is, I personally think it's very difficult to hire a bunch of rock stars and get them to do teamwork, get them to, be disciplined to innovate like this. Instead, if you focus on teamwork, people that are disciplined, and they fit in this culture, it is unbelievable how ordinary people can produce extraordinary things. And you know that you have a company when you reach that stage where ordinary people are producing extraordinary things, because you can't compete with a Google or an Amazon to go hire the best, right? And it doesn't matter. Even in Google or Amazon, there are only 10 or 20% that are really rock stars, and 80%, irrespective of the company, it is still a burden, right? So what I suggest is get these three things working for you, and I think you'll have a very successful, company. Even if you don't succeed in your first company, your second company, you'll do amazingly well. Now, I want to switch to, what I did, all my experience in terms of building DevOps and everything, right? This is an Activate offer that we used, but not an Activate offer, sorry. This is currently available on Activate, but I used this, just because I loved the way this company was, really taking away all that non-functional work. So I'll play this video just to give you a demo. Some of you are asking, well, all this is great, but how do I learn how to use all these things? Or for that matter, what can I do to not even have to bother about all these things, right? So let me just give you play a video.
Now let's take a look at a product demo. Take a finance department in an Enterprise California, USA company. They've decided to migrate a few applications onto AWS. See a dedicated VPC, 2 availability zones with public and private subnet, Docker containers on AWS EKS, in addition to functions on AWS Lambda to obtain a serverless model for the microservices. MySQL, Aurora database, and S3 are protected by a web application firewall. Now that we've gone through the desired architecture, let's get to work. We start by logging in to create the network infrastructure. That includes the VPC, availability zones, and subnets. Behind the scenes, the bot will auto-generate the required AWS configuration and complete the setup. We then move to deploy the application infrastructure. The application is called Invoice, and we start by creating a logical workspace or tenant by that name in the finance network that we just created. Application. Here, we are going to create a virtual machine. Notice that the IAM role, instance profile, and other AWS configurations. We are now creating an S3 bucket. The bot will auto-generate the IAM access to create a SQL database. It will also set up backups, encryption, and other best practices behind the scenes. With network and network infrastructure in place, we next move to deploy first the Docker-based microservice. Here again, the user provides an application-centric specification while the bot auto-generates Kubernetes and AWS configurations that includes the deployment or stateful sets, node ports, ingress controls, and other such security groups ACLs are applied. It is important to note that the bot is performing all these actions with no presumptions about the application topology that it is being asked to deploy. Now, let's deploy the Lambda function. It implicitly provides just-in-time access for users for AWS console access with the right permission set. There are no access permissions to manage manually. After uploading the package, we specify the Lambda function parameters, and the bot will do the rest. With all of the infrastructure in place and the application has been deployed, we can now do a sanity test. Good news, our application works. Finally, let's do some penetration testing of this application. We're performing a cross-site scripting attack. Looks like the application is vulnerable. To mitigate this, let's put a web application firewall in front of the application. Let's test again.
Let's look at the other necessary tasks the bots performed for the infrastructure. Here we have the metrics dashboard set up for the Invoice application. Next, businesses in highly regulated industries need a security and incident management platform, and guess what? That comes built in. All configuration changes in the cloud infrastructure are detected and controls applied. Compliance dashboards are readily available for auditors. Notice that all of this is set up without the user having to lift a finger. There's an audit trail of all actions in an application-specific context. Here, we are showing the audit trail of the Invoice application. Finally, there is CI/CD for daily code releases. SecOps are the future of cloud automation. To learn more, visit duplocloud.com. Now let's take a look at a product demo. Take a
So this is actually part of the Activate offer. Now, look, I use this. I'm also, by the way, I like this so much because I spent 10 years dabbling, building a product like this. And I would say we were in the early days of cloud, real early days. Back then, that low code. So the concept here is, when you say outsource non-functional work, outsource all this release and infrastructure and security, in this case, you're actually not, you're technically outsourcing, but you're outsourcing to a digital bot, right? Where from day one, so in the AWS presentation, they're looking at, one free offer or 7 free offers of your well-architected framework, how you learn, have you learned and built the right thing? Now here, what you need when you're doing behind the scenes, the body is taking care of the right things, right? You're not going to go figure out whether there is, whether it's done right again or not. That's again a waste of manual effort. You should put in all your effort to do what really drives your passion, your functional stuff, your differentiation in the world, right? So, this worked great for me. I suggest that you at least look for a solution like this, or this or some other solution like this. But the future is not going to be, you're not going to be able to build a team. And even if you have all the money, there is not enough expertise that can keep up with the new innovations that AWS is driving. And this has worked great for me. I've advised a lot of customers, but I myself started using this now because now I'm out of, I no longer have access to what we built as Rain, right? So the next thing we did was went with this company. But as I said, there's a link here. They have. So the beauty is, if you have AWS credits, you may be thinking that you apply AWS credit towards AWS services, but that AWS credit can be applied towards other services like this, security services and provisioning and implementation services, right? So that's my last slide. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Sri. Sri is available for questions. Any of your teams that would like to have questions. Thank you so much, Sri, for the talk. One of the things I am glad at very personally is you reinforce the fact that images are so powerful to communicate. Because in my workshop on presentation skills, that was what we were also trying to reinforce to students. And now it's good that a left brainer is kind of putting that across as well. So I think both the left and the right are telling people to draw stuff and tell customers. Any questions, Sri?
You can put them into chat as well, and maybe we'll kick off the poll in the meantime, and maybe remind people, Pradeep, about the spreadsheets that you need updated.
Yes. So I think most of the people on this call have updated that.
Done that? Okay, great.
So that's great. Any questions for Sri, either from the technology point of view or also from the point of view of how do you build a company and then sell it and then become someone who runs a foundation that's supporting entrepreneurship all over the world? That's kind of the every man's dream, every girl's dream kinds.
Thank you, Pradeep.
So was it planned, Sri, that you really wanted to like exit the business and go, or did it happen by accident? How was that?
No, actually, in fact, fortunately enough, we didn't even have to seek funding. There were enough, there were enough people scouting at the AWS events. And I'm telling you this story because once eventually, when we decided to get the funding, we acquired 2 companies. We took funding to acquire companies. And the first time that head of the fund, Boston Ventures, told me, Sri, when will you sell your company? And I said, like, what do you mean? Why should I sell my company? I'm having fun. I thought that we'll never sell this company. This is my lifetime. I'm having fun, right? But eventually, it's kind of went through. It's a long story, but the whole, by the book, one of the things we all understand is like how important cash flow is. So when that $950 million contract came through, we were squeezed between a rock and a hard place because, government in its legal, stuff, they were not paying us, but we were bleeding money and we would die, right? So it's this interesting paradigm that we were kind of forced to go down a path. We couldn't have sustained something like that, even though we lost the contract. It just kind of circumstances forced that. And I learned from my previous startups too, is that there are things like the macroeconomic things out of your control that you don't want to fight, like a 9/11 event or a pandemic event. Like when the economy has been going strong for 10 years strong, something is bound to happen. So I just wanted to really make sure that I didn't make the mistake I made in the last two stages. So that's how I'm glad I exited actually, and then that we are able to get back to the real mission that I wanted to do.
Perfect. Just a leading question from that as well. So your business kind of rode on the AWS thing, right? So there was a platform set and you tried to leap using that. What is it that you would advise to all these startups? Because a lot of them are always wondering that I want to come up with something absolutely out of the air and kind of go ahead and build it. But sometimes it makes sense to have the platform and then leap. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it's every service company's dream to build a platform or product, right? So first thing is a lot of companies said, Sri, how can you compete with AWS, building something like that? So one thing I would say is first, make anything that you're building, if it is of value, absolutely be prepared to have whatever cloud provider start taking up that service into their platform, right? You have to be but they have their disadvantage, right? So what I mean by they have their disadvantage is the problem is attractive to them only when it can be at a massive scale volume, right? So so they can only chip off the lowest common denominator. Right? They cannot get into specialization. If they get into specialization, then they won't scale, right? So what we need to do as entrepreneurs is always find that specialization, and you just want to target being Nemo in front of a big fish, right? Your nimbleness, and that's the biggest lesson. I mean, that's true of irrespective. Like you need to be that nimble and you need to be that innovative. But the best way to do that is to be so customer centric. Don't do anything that you don't see your line of sight to customer or revenue, right?
Okay. Good. Thank you so much for that, Sri. Any questions for Sri? In case the startups want to connect with you later on, Sri, is it okay to share your email ID?
Please, fortunately, I have enough time, especially afternoons, US East Coast time. I'd love to, besides the grant, any of these things like I talked about, I'm happy to give you advice. It doesn't, it's not like I have to spend a lot of time, a quick review and to point you to the right sources. Just reach out to me and schedule time with me. I actually have a calendar link that you can find a slot, and I'll send it to you as soon as you send me an email. Okay.
Super. So we'll share your email ID with the team. So that's fine.
Yeah, it's already there in my presentation. I'll let you. I'll share my presentation with you and Paul, and you can upload it. Yeah.
All the for the students on the call, those are available on the Bitly link, the IU PitchFest link, which will have all the videos and the slides of all the speakers as we do the workshop. So,
and in fact, I've already uploaded the one that Al did a moment ago. So we'll do the same by the end of the weekend. If Sri, you can send it to us, and then Pradeep, if you can get Krishna's one as well, perhaps by the end of the weekend. But Sri, thank you so much, and all the best with your local competition. Are you participating in the PitchFest tomorrow at DC?
Yes, yeah. I have to be announcing my first grants tomorrow. Yes.
Okay, good. Is it only open to the DC chapter, or
no? Not at all. In fact, it is global. I mean, there's one. There's only one Atlanta team that happens to be. Thanks to you that. Forward. So yeah, but I'm open to global chapters.
Yeah.
I mean, even after the PitchFest, right? If you can still send me notes. Yeah.